You step off a narrow wooden boat and onto a rocky edge of a Greenland fjord, expecting a frozen wasteland. And instead, you see grass. Not golf course green, more like the earth is trying its best green. The air feels sharp enough to wake up every bad decision you've ever made. Water stretches out like black glass, perfectly still, like it's judging you for not bringing a warmer jacket. And then you notice at a house that doesn't look like a house at all. It looks like a small hill, smoke slipping quietly from the ground. 1,000 years ago, Vikings didn't just visit this place. They settled here, built farms, raised families, tried to turn the edge of the Arctic into something that felt almost normal. And the big question isn't why they came. It's how they made it work. Imagine living somewhere where Amazon Prime doesn't exist. The nearest hardware store is an ocean away, and winter lasts longer than your last situationship. Every decision here matters. One bad harvest, one broken boat, one sick animal, and the whole system starts wobbling. Today, you're not just hearing about Viking Greenland, you're walking through it. Step by step, ground level, till it stops feeling like a documentary and starts feeling like a place you could almost smell a mix of salt air, turf smoke, and determination. The fjord in front of you isn't scenery, it's infrastructure. Think of it less like a peaceful lake and more like a medieval interstate highway, except with fewer rest stops and more existential dread. The water connects farms that can't reach each other by land. Boats slide quietly along the shoreline, heavy with cargo, riding low like they've got secrets on board. And you start wondering what could possibly be worth shipping out of a place where trees are basically a rumor. You follow a worn path away from the shore, boots crunching over stones, climbing slowly upward. The farm appears gradually, almost hiding in the landscape. Thick turf walls stacked carefully, stone at the bottom to keep moisture from ruining everything. The roof looks heavy enough to survive a hurricane, which is good, because Greenland weather has zero chill and not in a fun way. This isn't architecture designed to impress guests. It's architecture designed to outlast winter. You duck through a low doorway, and suddenly the world gets smaller. Firelight flickers, smoke curls lazily overhead, and every inch of space is used like someone is paying rent by the square foot. Tools hang where hands can reach them instantly. Storage lines the walls. Nothing exists here just for decoration. The vibe is less HGTV dream home and more, if this breaks in January, we're all in trouble. Survival isn't dramatic here. It's quiet, constant planning. Back outside, the farmyard feels alive. Buckets stacked, ropes coiled, sheds leaning into the wind like they've learned not to argue with nature. Then you hear it, animals shifting, snorting, hooves tapping against packed earth. Livestock isn't a cute detail in Viking Greenland. It's currency, food, insurance policy, social status. Basically, the original version of having a really good credit score. But animals also bring risk, because winter doesn't negotiate. If the herd struggles, the people struggle faster. You walk toward the fields expecting crops, maybe something recognizable. Instead, you find grass. Endless stretches of it, carefully cut and stacked into tall bundles. This is the real engine of the settlement. Hay isn't just hay, it's future survival packed into neat piles. Every swing of a tool, every stack built higher, is a silent countdown against the cold months ahead. You realize this isn't farming the way movies show it. This is logistics disguised as agriculture. Every decision asks the same question: how long can we last? And that raises another thought. Why choose this life at all? Why leave places with bigger forests, easier soil, and fewer icebergs floating past like slow-moving traffic cones? The answer starts to appear as you walk past the main house, toward a smaller building standing quietly nearby. A church? It's not huge or flashy, but it changes how the whole settlement feels. A church here means these people don't see themselves as temporary visitors. They're planning for generations. Weddings, funerals, news from distant lands. This is where a scattered community becomes something shared. Stand there long enough, and you can almost imagine a few figures arriving from neighboring farms. Cloaks stiff with wind, boots muddy, voices low but familiar. Faith here isn't just belief, structure. It holds together a place where isolation could easily turn into loneliness. And it also hints at something bigger. These settlers still think of themselves as part of a wider world beyond the fjords. So you head back toward the water, and suddenly the settlement feels busier. It's summer, which in Greenland basically means slightly less cold. Hurry up. Boats come and go more often. Supplies move quickly. People work with a kind of focused urgency, like they're racing an invisible clock. Near the shoreline, stones are worn smooth from years of landings. A boat rests half pulled onto the beach, ropes tied tight, bundles stacked nearby waiting to be carried inland. And then the big mystery finally starts to unfold. If wood is rare and iron isn't mined here, how does this place function? Where do tools come from? Nails? Weapons? Cooking pots? Walk past storage areas, barrels, wrapped goods, carefully prepared cargo, and you realize Greenland isn't valuable because it's comfortable. It's valuable because it produces things other places want badly enough to send ships back every year. This isn't just a remote farm. It's a node in a medieval trade network. Men lift bundles. Someone checks cargo with the seriousness of a modern airport security line. And suddenly, the fjord feels less isolated. Trade keeps the settlement alive. Ships don't just bring goods, they bring connection, news, and proof that the outside world still remembers this place exists. Without that connection, Greenland wouldn't feel like a frontier. It would feel like the end of the map. Morning begins quietly here. The fjord turns steel gray, wind skimming across the water like a warning. Smoke rises from turf roofs again, and people step outside already moving. There's no slow start, no coffee first energy. Tools are repaired, ropes tightened, animals checked. Idleness feels risky in a place where small problems grow fast. By midday, the fields turn into a coordinated rhythm. Cutting, turning, stacking. It looks repetitive until you realize every motion is part of a survival equation. The sun hangs longer in the sky than you expect. Light stretching across the landscape like it's trying to make up for winter's darkness. Afternoon might bring a visitor, a message, or a boat sliding into view. A reminder that isolation isn't total. Even small contact feels significant here, like someone knocking on your door after months of silence. Conversations are short, practical. Underneath them is relief proof that the wider world still moves. Evening arrives slowly. The sky fades into pale gold, animals settle, and someone checks the haystacks again like they're guarding treasure. Because they are. In this moment, Viking Greenland doesn't feel like a myth or a textbook chapter. It feels like a fragile but real system built by people who chose to live where most others wouldn't. And for a while around the year 1000, that choice actually worked. The longer you stay in this settlement, the more you realize nothing here is random. Every fence, every stack of turf, every path worn into the ground feels like it was placed by someone who understood exactly how unforgiving this environment could be. The wind doesn't just blow, it studies weaknesses. And the Vikings didn't survive here by being fearless. They survived by being practical. Think less Hollywood warrior and more extremely organized neighbor who labels everything in the garage. You walk toward the edge of the farm where a low stone wall cuts across the landscape. At first it seems small, almost unimpressive, but then you notice how it shapes the movement of animals, protects the best grass, and blocks just enough wind to keep the soil from giving up completely. It's not flashy engineering, but it's smart, like someone solving a giant puzzle with limited pieces. And honestly, that's the theme of Greenland life. Making something work with almost nothing. Out near the shoreline, a small group is repairing a boat. The hull is pulled up onto rocks, tilted just enough to expose the worn wood underneath. Someone scrapes away damage while another heats tar nearby. You realize these boats are more than transportation, they're lifelines. Without them, trade stops. Without trade, iron tools disappear. And without tools, the entire settlement slowly grinds down like a phone battery stuck at 1% with no charger in sight. There's humor here too, in quiet ways. Imagine a Viking arguing over whose turn it is to patch the sail while the wind threatens to steal the whole thing. Someone probably said the medieval equivalent of, "I told you we should have fixed this last summer." Survival doesn't erase personality, it just gives it sharper edges. People still joke, complain, and find small moments of relief between long stretches of work. As you move inland again, you notice smaller structures tucked into the ground: storage pits, low sheds, areas carefully designed to keep food cool and safe. This isn't a place that wastes resources. Even scraps are saved, repurposed, reused. If modern minimalism had a Viking cousin, this would be it, except instead of decluttering for aesthetics, they're decluttering to avoid starvation. Inside one of the turf buildings, the light shifts softly through a narrow opening in the roof. The smell of smoke lingers, and you can almost hear quiet conversations layered over the crackle of firewood. People here live close together, not because it's cozy, but because shared warmth means survival. Privacy probably meant turning slightly away from someone and pretending you couldn't hear them chewing. Step back outside and the sky feels enormous. Greenland has that effect: wide open spaces that make humans look small but determined. Children run near the edge of the field, learning early that work and play blur together here. Maybe one of them tosses a stick into the air, pretending it's a spear, while an older farmer shakes their head like, "Yeah, that energy is cute now. Wait until winter chores start." By afternoon, the settlement hums with quiet motion. Someone measures stored hay, someone else checks animal shelters for gaps where wind might sneak through later in the year. These tasks look ordinary, but they carry invisible weight. Every repair made today is a problem avoided months from now. There's no dramatic soundtrack, just steady preparation. And then there's the social side of life. Something easy to forget when imagining remote settlements. People gather, exchange news, share stories about ships arriving from faraway lands. Maybe someone mentions rumors of new trade routes or a season that felt warmer than expected. Conversations travel faster than boats here, stitching isolated farms into a shared network. Near the church, a small group stands talking quietly. It's not a loud gathering, more like a steady heartbeat for the community. You realize how important these moments must be. When your world is surrounded by water and ice, even a short conversation can feel like a reset button. It reminds everyone they're not alone out here trying to make the impossible feel normal. As the evening approaches again, the light stretches across the fjord, turning the water into shifting silver. A boat appears on the horizon, slow and deliberate, its sail catching just enough wind to move forward. People notice immediately. Activity shifts. Someone walks down to the landing area, another prepares ropes. Arrival here isn't casual, it's an event. Cargo gets unloaded piece by piece. Bundles wrapped tight, tools carefully handled. Maybe a few items that traveled farther than anyone standing here has ever gone. Imagine the excitement of seeing iron tools after months without new supplies. That's not just convenience, that's reassurance that the wider world still connects to this distant edge. And yet, beneath the motion, there's always awareness of risk. Storms can arrive without warning. Seasons can shift unpredictably. The Vikings didn't control Greenland. They negotiated with it daily. That constant balance gives the settlement a quiet intensity. Like everyone understands they're part of something fragile but worth maintaining. Night settles slowly, not with sudden darkness, but with a gradual fading of color. The fjord reflects the last light like a mirror holding on to the day a little longer. Fires glow inside turf houses, smoke drifting upward into the cold air. Conversations soften, tools finally rest. And for a brief moment, the entire place feels calm, not because danger is gone, but because preparation has bought another day of stability. And as you stand there, looking across the fjord, towards scattered farms barely visible in the distance, one thought becomes clear. Viking Greenland wasn't just about surviving harsh conditions. It was about building a system strong enough that ordinary life could exist at the very edge of the world. The first real hint of winter doesn't arrive like a dramatic storm. It sneaks in quietly. The wind feels heavier. The grass loses its color. The fjord turns darker, reflecting a sky that seems to shrink closer to the ground every day. People don't panic. They adjust. Movements become more focused, conversations shorter. Like everyone understands the season is shifting, whether they're ready or not. You walk toward the largest turf building on the farm, the longhouse. From outside, it still looks like part of the earth itself, low and wide. designed to avoid catching too much wind. But inside, it feels different. Warmth gathers here. Firelight moves across wooden beams, and the air smells like smoke, wool, and salt. This is where winter life compresses, where work, rest, and community blend into one shared space. Benches line the walls, tools hang within reach, and storage sits close by like a silent safety net. Imagine the soundscape: low conversations, the crackle of fire, someone sharpening a blade slowly, another person mending clothing stitch by stitch. There's a rhythm to it, almost like a living machine designed to keep morale steady while the outside world turns colder. It's not luxury, but it's not misery either. It's practical comfort, the kind that comes from knowing you've prepared as best you can. Humor doesn't disappear here, just changes shape. Someone probably jokes about how the wind outside sounds like an angry neighbor who forgot their keys. Another person complains about the same stew they've eaten 3 nights in a row. It's small, human stuff, proof that even in harsh environments, people still look for reasons to laugh. Step outside for a moment, and the landscape feels quieter. Boats are pulled farther onto land, secured tightly like sleeping animals waiting for spring. The shoreline that once felt busy now seems paused. Travel becomes risky, and every trip is weighed carefully. The fjord, once a highway, starts to feel like a boundary. Back inside the longhouse, daily routines shift. More time is spent repairing gear, telling stories, and planning for the months ahead. Storytelling isn't just entertainment. It's a way to pass time without letting anxiety grow too loud. Imagine tales of distant voyages, exaggerated victories, or that one time someone claimed they almost saw land beyond the horizon. Whether true or not, the stories keep minds moving, even when bodies stay indoors. Food storage becomes the center of attention. Barrels opened carefully, portions measured with quiet discipline. No one grabs extra just because they're hungry. Every meal is part of a long calculation, how to stretch supplies until the first signs of spring return. It's the medieval version of budgeting, except the consequences of overspending are far more serious than a declined credit card. And then there are the animals. Sheltered close to the main buildings, their presence adds warmth and noise to the settlement. Breath rises in clouds, hooves shift against packed earth, and farmers check them constantly. Livestock represents hope through winter, proof that life continues even when the outside world looks frozen in place. Days grow shorter. Light fades faster than you expect, leaving long stretches of twilight where the sky feels endless but distant. The mood inside the longhouse shifts subtly. People become quieter, more reflective. Work continues, but there's more time spent sitting near the fire, staring into flames that feel like the only moving thing in a still world. Yet even in this season, connection matters. A neighbor might arrive after a careful journey across snow-covered ground, bringing news or simply the comfort of another voice. Greetings feel warmer, longer. Maybe someone shares dried fish or a small trade item, gestures that carry emotional weight far beyond their size. Winter storms eventually arrive, pressing against turf walls with a steady force. Snow gathers along the edges of buildings, reshaping the landscape into soft white curves. Inside, the longhouse holds firm. The design works thick walls, trap heat, low roofs, resist wind. And the community leans on shared routines to keep spirits steady. You begin to notice something deeper beneath the daily life: resilience mixed with uncertainty. The Vikings here don't know exactly what the future holds. Weather patterns shift, trade ships might arrive late or not at all. Small changes ripple outward quickly in a place built on careful balance. But for now, the system still works. People wake, work, eat, and rest, repeating the cycle that has carried them through many winters before. As the coldest weeks pass, subtle signs of change begin to appear. The sun lingers a little longer each day. Snow softens at the edges. Conversations turn toward spring plans, repairing boats, checking fields, preparing for another season of hay cutting. Hope doesn't arrive all at once. It grows slowly, like light returning to the fjord. Standing at the longhouse doorway, watching smoke drift into a pale sky, you realize something important. Viking Greenland isn't just a story about harsh survival. It's about adaptation, about people reshaping their lives around an environment that never stops testing them. And while this moment feels stable, small cracks are starting to form beneath the surface. Challenges that future seasons will push harder than anyone here expects. Spring doesn't arrive in Greenland like a grand announcement. It creeps in quietly, almost shy, as if testing whether it's welcome back. The snow pulls away from the grass in uneven patches, revealing earth that looks tired but alive. The fjord changes color first, from heavy gray to a softer blue that catches light again. People notice immediately. Doors open more often. Conversations stretch longer. After months inside the longhouse, even cold air feels like freedom. Down near the shoreline, the boats are uncovered one by one. Ropes are checked, sails inspected, small cracks repaired with careful hands. It's the medieval version of opening your car after a long winter. Except instead of checking the battery, you're checking whether your only connection to the outside world still floats. The mood shifts from endurance to anticipation. Everyone knows that if trade ships return, the settlement breathes easier for another year. Fields begin to show signs of life. Farmers walk slowly across the ground, testing soil with their boots, judging whether it's ready for work again. There's no dramatic planting scene here, just small, steady steps toward rebuilding the cycle. Hay production becomes the focus once more, because everyone remembers exactly how fast winter consumes what summer creates. Preparation never really ends, just changes form. One morning, a shape appears far out on the fjord to sail against the horizon. At first, it's just a line, easy to miss if you blink. Then word spreads quickly through the settlement. People gather along the shore, not rushing, but definitely moving faster than usual. A returning ship means news, tools, maybe stories from lands that feel almost mythical after months of isolation. As the vessel comes closer, you see the details: weathered wood. A crew that looks just as tired and determined as the settlers waiting on land. Cargo is unloaded piece by piece, and with every bundle, the outside world feels less distant. Iron tools glint briefly in the light. Textiles, supplies, maybe a few items that spark curiosity more than necessity. Trade isn't just business here, it's reassurance that the settlement still matters to a larger network. But beneath the excitement, there's tension too. Trade depends on many things that the settlers can't control. Weather patterns, political shifts far away, and the fragile economics of what Greenland produces versus what Europe demands. You can almost sense conversations turning more serious as leaders discuss prices, risks, and rumors of changing conditions beyond the fjords. Life returns to a faster rhythm. Boats move more frequently, people visit neighboring farms, and the church fills with voices again. Weddings, agreements, shared decisions, moments that remind everyone this isn't just a survival camp, but a society with its own structure and identity. Children run farther from the houses now, exploring hills that were buried under snow weeks before, and yet small hints of uncertainty remain. Maybe a farmer notices grass growing thinner in one area. Maybe a trader mentions that certain goods aren't as valuable as they used to be. These aren't dramatic problems, just quiet signals that the balance-keeping, Viking Greenland stable requires constant adjustment. The settlement still stands strong, but it's built on a delicate equation between environment, trade, and human resilience. By late summer, the fjord feels alive again. Boats glide across water that reflects long hours of sunlight. Work continues at a steady pace, cutting hay, repairing structures, preparing for another winter even while enjoying the brief warmth. The Vikings here understand something modern life often forgets. Good seasons are not a time to relax completely. They're a time to prepare wisely. As evening falls one last time in this story, you stand on a ridge overlooking the settlement. Turf roofs blend into the landscape, smoke rising in thin lines that fade into the sky. The church stands quietly at the center, a symbol of community more than power. Boats rest along the shore, ready for whatever the next season brings. For a moment, everything feels balanced, a fragile harmony between people and a place that constantly challenges them. Viking Greenland, around the year 1000, isn't just an icy frontier. It's a planned society built on discipline, cooperation, and a deep understanding of limits. It works not because the environment is easy, but because the people living here adapts faster than the challenges surrounding them. And as you step back from the fjord, watching the light fade across water that once felt silent and distant, the settlement stops feeling like a distant history lesson. It feels real, a place shaped by choices, risks, and everyday human determination. A reminder that even at the edge of the world, people don't just survive. They build, connect, and imagine a future.